Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Deanne Crane with the National Safety Council. Our driving concern is pleased to be able to offer why unnoticed recalls are unnecessary risks, how to incorporate Check to Protect as part of your transportation safety program. Just a couple of quick items before I introduce our presenter. To ensure a smooth presentation, please make sure your audio and video are muted. You should have received a guide by email to follow along and for note taking. If you haven't printed it off, check your email and take a quick minute to do so. If you need me to resend, please type your email in the chat to the host. You do have the capability to ask questions throughout the presentation using the chat function. At the end of the session, there will be a link to a short 5-question evaluation posted in the chat. We encourage everyone to complete the evaluation as it helps us with future training and resources. Your presenter this morning is Tom Musick, Senior Program Manager with the Transportation Safety Roadway Practice Team with the National Safety Council. And he is joined by Cindy Leonard, Program Manager with the National Safety Council. With that, I am going to welcome Cindy, and she's going to say a few opening remarks and some more information about Tom.
Well, thank you, Deanne, and welcome everyone. I'll just make one parting comment, Deanne. Your name still says Lisa, so if I call you Lisa Robinson, it's not on me. The reason for that, everyone, is because when Lisa's not able to join us, we have higher access with our Zoom account if we have Deanne on as Lisa. So if you noticed that Lisa was looking a little bit different for herself today, that's why. Deanne is great at helping us with all of our webinar events, and sometimes she adds a little to the mix and she watches our chat, so we're glad to have her as part of this today. And we're especially glad also to introduce Tom Musick, Senior Program Manager at the National Safety Council. He's going to be telling us about our Check to Protect program and what a fantastic tool that is to check recalls that are open on any vehicles. And if you're thinking about your personal vehicles, absolutely that's great. Because you're joining us as an employer or as an employee, we want you also to be thinking about those vehicles as well. So now in the chat function, if you could tell us a little bit about whether or not you manage a fleet, what you do as an employer that involves vehicles. Do you send people on business trips? Are they renting cars at airports and such? Do you have temporary vehicle drivers? So just give us a little idea of what we're working with today, and we'll convey that information over to Tom so that he can hand select and customize a little bit of what he shares with us. Tom, one of the parts of safety that's really great about your program is using technology and making something that's safety relevant more convenient for consumers. So, that's what gets me excited about Check to Protect, is we have multiple vehicles in our family now with our young adult drivers, and making it easier for us to learn about recalls is really key. So I'm excited to hear what you have to share with us about how that technology continues to advance. So I'm just going to stop talking now and let you take it away. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Cindy. And I'm just glad you didn't call me Lisa Robinson, because that would I think that would have set off some alarm bells.
For sure.
But thanks for this opportunity. Thank you to Cindy. Thanks to Deanne. And honestly, thank you to Lisa for giving me this opportunity to just talk with you all about the program I lead at the National Safety Council, and just explore ways that we can work together with you and with your workers, honestly, just to keep everybody safe while they're on the job, and for that matter, while they're at home with their families as well. So my program is called Check to Protect, and the point of it is to increase awareness about unrepaired safety recalls on vehicles. So it doesn't sound exciting, but the more that I've gotten into it, it's actually pretty cool. And there's some new layers to it. As Cindy said, new ways that we can engage with you, with your workplace, to try to spread this message and to try to go all the way to the finish line where that repair is made. So I'll go ahead and advance these slides, and Cindy, just nod if this works for me. That's working. Perfect. Okay, so I'll just quickly, for an agenda, I want to describe, why this is an important issue for employers and what we're doing about it on the NSC side, and how we can work with you to help improve safety at your workplace. And also ways that we can kind of track successes. I really enjoy doing that. let's say, we learned that 100 people at your workplace have recalls, or 100 of your fleet vehicles have recalls. What's really interesting is to kind of, track this and say, okay, well, how do we address these? What are the obstacles? Are the parts available? Is there a certain automaker, you're trying to connect with, because you don't necessarily want to, take your entire fleet down for an entire week or something. If you've got 100 vehicles and they've got recalls, you're not going to shut your business down. So how can we manage it in a way that repairs are getting made, but you're still able to work and do your business? And any questions you have at the end of this as well, I'm open to brainstorming ideas. I think that, one thing that I love about working with employers is that you're not just employers, like you're leaders in your communities. So you might have those connections with the school district, with the local university, with the, village hall or city council, or whatever the case may be. There's so many ways that you can help us get the word out about safety, because your communities way better than I'm ever going to know the community. So I don't want to come in and just pretend that I know everything, because my wife would tell you that I definitely do not know everything. So open to ideas and thoughts as we go through these. So I should introduce myself really quickly. So as I said, I'm Tom Musick. I'm with the National Safety Council. I've worked on this campaign since its launch in 2017. Prior to that, I had other roles within the Safety Council, for Safety and Health Magazine, Family Safety and Health Magazine, working on some other transportation safety initiatives. I grew up in Missouri. I'm from St. Louis. I now live near NSC's headquarters in the suburbs of Chicago. So that's my biography. It's not the most interesting, but I figured I would share it. So Check to Protect started in the summer of 2017. It started when FCA, so Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, they came to the Safety Council and they said, listen, we've got a problem here. Safety recalls are at record highs, and people are dying because of unrepaired safety recalls. Many more are being injured because of unrepaired safety recalls. And at that time, how it worked, it was just kind of every automaker for itself. So it was FCA was trying to contact all of its drivers. Ford would try to contact all of its drivers. GM would do its own campaign. Toyota would do its own thing. And there was just not a lot of a uniform message. It was kind of confusing. There wasn't necessarily a centralized place where people and employers could go to learn about their recall status. So FCA came to us and said, can you help us? We know this is still our obligation. It's not the employer's, it's not your obligation to make sure all your workers are have vehicles that are recall free, or to make sure necessarily that, every last, technical detail on every last, recall that might have come out 3 days ago. It is the automaker's responsibility, and they know that. It's their responsibility to get in touch with you and tell you there's a recall. But a lot of times it's not that easy. It's not that simple, because if we're talking about vehicles that have changed hands, those notices might go to the previous owner. If we're talking about, particularly on the consumer side, someone who's moved or changed locations, Ford doesn't know that. So they're sending it to an old address. And more than that too, when they do connect and the message does get through, a lot of times people kind of look at it as junk mail, toss it aside. I don't have time for this. It's not that big of a deal. It's probably fine. And so the mindset needed to change. And so that's why FCA came to the Safety Council, because, we had done something similar with the airbag and seatbelt safety campaign, which kind of now exists as click it or ticket, and that was back in the 90s. And there was this issue where people just weren't buckling up. I think seatbelt use was in the 60th percentile for that, that front seat. And many people were dying and they weren't buckled up. And the rates of deaths among people who weren't buckled obviously were significant. And it was a mindset, in a lot of ways, people just didn't want to buckle up. I don't want to, I don't need to, I'm fine. And I think over time, you've seen through the click it or ticket effort, now when you look at those seatbelt rates, they're in the 90th percentile, and there's still 10% to go, but the mindset has changed to now where a 16-year-old gets in his or her vehicle, they buckle their seatbelt, it's just what you do. And that's what we want to accomplish on the recall side. You just check your recall status. If you have one, you get it repaired. It's just what you do. It's part of your routine vehicle maintenance, in the same way that you check your oil, in the same way that you keep an eye on your tire pressure. Vehicle safety recalls should be in that same category, and we're working to change the mindset, and I think we've had some success over the past few years on that. So it started with FCA. Now we've got 6 automakers in the coalition. We still, Check to Protect works for all makes and models. So if you've got a Honda, if you've got a Subaru, if you've got, you know, a Hyundai, all of those cars, that'll work too. But these are the automakers supporting and funding our Check to Protect work. So we brought in Toyota and Nissan, we brought in Ford and GM, and then we brought in Volvo as well. So we're pretty excited that we've got about a third now of the automaker market. We're talking with Honda, Volkswagen, Audi, Mercedes, BMW, some others as well, to try to make this a full effort, a unified effort, which is pretty cool, because when you look at these brands, you know, if you're going to buy a vehicle, these brands, they're gonna fight tooth and nail to get you to buy their vehicle, not their rival. But when it comes to safety, they genuinely are coming together, sharing best practices, saying things like, how can we help employers, you know, keep their fleets safe? How can we spread this message through the workplace audience? And they're sharing best practices. So it is kind of refreshing to see, you know, business rivals coming together for safety. So far in the last 3 years, we've had more than 500,000 people come to checktoprotect.org to search their VIN. And when that's your 17-digit, vehicle identification number. So if you put that in to the website, you click search, you get an immediate result as to how many recalls, if you have recalls, and if you do, specifically what those recalls are. And then I think something that might interest this audience particularly is our bulk VIN lookup tool that we have access to. So what that means is we can search up to 10,000 vehicles at one time. So no matter how big your workplace is or your fleet is, you know, let's say even if you've got 6 vehicles, you don't necessarily want to sit down and input 6 different VINs, do 6 different searches, try to keep track of it all. And now magnify that. Let's say you have 500 vehicles. You definitely don't want to sit down and take the time to one by one go through 500 searches. So what we can do through the bulk VIN lookup is run that just as one clean search and send you back that information. And it'll show you on a spreadsheet, okay, these were the 500 VINs. These 150 have recalls. Here's the information we have about those recalls, and it's fast and it's helpful to you to get that information, so you know exactly, you know, where to go to work in terms of getting those repairs made. It's also something with Check to Protect, the mindset is to be proactive, you know, so rather than wait for that notice to come to your workplace, or rather than wait for that notice to come to your mailbox at home, you can go to checktoprotect.org, enter your VIN, and get that information in real time, rather than, you know, just passively waiting for a notice that may or may not arrive for the various reasons we described. We also have options in Spanish as well. So that's important. If you have Spanish speakers in your workforce, we have a Spanish page on our website. And as you go through the slides here, you'll see that we also have a text message campaign available in English as well as in Spanish. So these are some of the sources that we're working with. State DMVs, governors and mayors, military bases. We were at Shepherd Air Force Base last year in Wichita Falls, Texas, which I really enjoyed. Sporting events back when they were, you know, highly populated. We'd go to NASCAR races, fleet managers, driver trainers, colleges and universities, inspection facilities. You know, these are places you're bringing in your vehicle. We can search your VIN. Law enforcement's been on our side to get the word out about the importance of checking for recalls. Just the broader employer audience, as well as dealerships, because at the end of the day, you have to get that vehicle to a dealership or somehow work with a dealership to get that repair made. So we've partnered up with the National Auto Dealers Association, as well as the Independent Auto Dealers Association. So we're just trying to make this a comprehensive program that before, you know, 3 years ago just didn't exist. We also have these organizations that we partner with, GHSA, the Motor Vehicle Administrators, the Lifesavers Conference, AARP, we mentioned the dealers. So we're just trying to keep everybody together and everybody kind of organized with this theme. The reason we call it Check to Protect is because we want you to check your recall status in order to protect the people who ride in those vehicles. So they're your colleagues, your coworkers, they're your family, your friends. Check your status to protect them. I'm not here to lecture anyone or yell and scream. It's genuinely do it for them if you don't have time to do it for yourself. That's the message we promote. You see some images here, again, pre-COVID, but when we get out into the world, we're able to get on those bases, We're able to get at some NASCAR races. In the bottom right there, that's Christopher Bell, who's a rookie on the NASCAR series. And you see the kind of the bottom left, where we're leaving notifications. And this is a good point to bring up, that we can come to you and we can search vehicles in your lot, or we can help you organize an effort in which your own workers do this, as a project where they can go out into the parking lot, search VINs, notify the vehicles that do have unrepaired recalls, just as that extra motivation to get that person to make that repair. And we are seeing progress. I know the stat now is a couple years old. They always come out kind of on a delay, but we do see successes in terms of repairs that are made. We can't necessarily control the number of open safety recalls, because who's to say on Monday there's not 5 million recalls that are issued? So we can't necessarily get to 0 recalls. That's a little bit out of our control. But what we can control is that repair rate. So we're trying to see that repair rate continue to climb, because that's going to show us that people are.
Tom, I'm going to ask you just to amplify that one statement that you made one slide back about how you can actually come out to an employer's parking lot,
right,
and tell us a little bit more about how that occurs and how they would engage in an effort to make that happen.
So there's a couple different ways, and in these images, you see the bottom left. You see the women with the yellow shirts. They've got our Check to Protect shirts. They're out there. They have tablets, and through their tablets, they're able to quickly input the VIN or the license plate and get that recall status immediately. So in these images, these were teams of people, usually 4 or 6 people. We'd all organize. We'd divvy up the parking lots. These were typically pretty large places where there were, thousands of vehicles, but we can customize it. And especially if it is a smaller workplace, it's something where a couple workers, if they're interested in a volunteer project or something like that, could do this. There is an app that I can help connect people with. So this was people on foot searching on tablet. If they see that they have an unrepaired recall, they put a notification on there. There's a new technology too that we'll get into about where we can send a vehicle that has technology, a camera atop the vehicle, and it quickly scans the plate and quickly pings any vehicles with open recalls. So we're actually able to cover almost 10 times as much ground using this technology. And that's something where if you're interested, if you think that's something that your employer could benefit from, let's talk. I think at this stage we're doing kind of communities and neighborhoods, and that's something we want to branch out and offer to workplace, especially as we look toward 2021. So that's a good question, Cindy. And it's an important issue, if this is something that you're kind of like, still, it's a recall, big deal. Like it's like my gas cap doesn't close, or, that's true. There are some recalls. They're not all apples to apples. Certain recalls are kind of just, it's still a safety issue. You still want to fix it. It's maybe not top of the charts in terms of, urgency. But then you see these airbag recalls, which you've probably heard about. These Takata airbags, these inflators can explode and shoot shrapnel into somebody's face, whether they're behind the steering wheel, or oftentimes their faulty airbag is also on the passenger side. We know at least 26 people have died now, including someone. This just came out. The story just came out. The actual event, I think, was a couple months ago, but this was in Mesa, Arizona, and you can see kind of the story from USA Today on the right there. How many times Honda was trying to get through to people to say, hey, this vehicle's not safe. This vehicle's not safe. You can get a free repair. Make sure you get that free repair. And it was never done. And now the airbag ruptures and someone's killed. And the sad part, among other things that are sad about this story, is it wasn't even the registered owner of the vehicle. So it was, that person's family member, or I don't know the relationship, but it was somebody that person knew driving that vehicle when the airbag inflator ruptured. It goes to show, I think, the importance of getting these repairs made, especially on those airbag recalls, because we know that that's the priority number one, is getting those airbag recalls fixed. At the same time, Check to Protect will tell you every recall associated, every safety recall. So we don't limit it to airbags. But if you do see airbags pop up, whether it's in your fleet or your workers' personal vehicles, that's not something to toy around with or to just kind of, put off to the side. That's an important thing to take care of.
Well, and Tom, you know, we tend to stay focused on fatality rates when we're talking traffic safety and transportation safety numbers. But,
Mhm.
you know, this is a great illustration of airbags crossing over several different car manufacturers,
Right,
right? Not just Toyota. The
right.
traditional ways of reaching people were occurring. News media was picking up this story. Takata airbag almost became something that a lot of people knew about in the general public, whether or not they'd received a recall notice or not.
Right.
So, you know, there was a massive effort on the recall for these Takata airbags. And beyond the fatality risks, you know, we lost 26 people as a result, but we also had a lot of
Hmm.
injuries.
Yeah, hundreds.
And
Yeah.
you know, I mean, that's just the kind of injury that you don't need added to your plate.
Right.
Our lives are pretty complex as they are. So if something simple will allow for you to know that you're current and you're safe when it comes to recalls, you know,
Mhm.
that's just something we all have to get behind.
And when we're talking about auto parts these days, even if, regardless of if you drive a Jeep or a Ford or a Chevy or a Honda, all of these manufacturers were using Takata airbags. So it cuts
Mhm.
across most automakers. So it's not one of these, well, I don't have a Honda, I don't have to worry about it. It's most automakers that had these faulty Takatas in their vehicle.
Sure.
Yeah,
It's not
tens of
just the
millions.
one.
Hmm. Yeah.
And you know, I know you're going to touch on a little bit of how NSC, how Check to Protect helps bridge that gap. Once you know there's recall, the
Hmm.
next steps are ... right?
Hmm.
So you're going to be talking a little bit about that too.
Right, absolutely. Right. And I'll kind of go through this one a little quicker, but basically how we want to keep working, how we want to keep growing the program. So we want to let employers know about the bulk bin check. We want to get to more military bases, get messaging in more state DMVs. And the reason for that is because when you go to the DMV, whether it's their website or in person, you're holding that piece of paper, you've got your VIN right there. We want to take advantage of that. Insurance and rideshare, you know, we think there's a lot of ways we can get the message out through those industries as well. And community colleges and universities, especially, we know that the highest risk vehicles are 5 years or older, which isn't that old of a vehicle. I mean, we're talking a 2015 vehicle, as well as any vehicles that have changed hands. So when you look at those audiences like community colleges, universities, younger people, they could be driving an older vehicle, maybe a used vehicle. I know that's how I started out. Those could be more risky. So I only say this because, again, as employers, you're all leaders in your communities. If you have contacts, if you know people in your communities where maybe this information could help keep more people safe, please let me know and work with me on that, because I want to keep getting the word out. And I think this is a really relevant slide, especially to this audience. What these numbers show, so when you look at Texas, what does that mean? 26.8%. That means 26.8% of the vehicles on the road today in Texas have an unrepaired recall. So more than 1 out of 4. I mean, you think about going to the grocery store, looking at your workplace parking lot, wherever you are, 1 out of 4 of those vehicles has an unrepaired safety recall on average. It's not a small issue. And as you look at the nation, everybody's in double digits. Nobody's immune. You know, you can see that, particularly when you look kind of in that South, you know, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, that those rates are higher. And so there's 2 issues there. One, we really need to get those repairs made. 2, just because you're in Texas and you know better than I do, it's hot, it's humid. Those summers are not a joke. That, when it comes to the airbags, increases the risk, because the more cycles of heat and humidity that those airbags go through, the more risky they are that they could rupture. We're talking about the ones that have been recalled. So that's why a lot of our work has focused on the southeast, because, you know, that's where the heat and humidity is the worst, and therefore the risk is the highest with these faulty airbags. And then you can actually go even deeper and see the top 10 cities in terms of proportions of recalls. So Odessa, more than 1 out of 3 vehicles has a recall. As you look, you know, it's across the state. You could go down to Houston, down to Brownsville. You can go out to El Paso. You can go up to Lubbock. Like, these are just the top 10, you know, but I think you'll see from that 26% figure that, again, if we're talking other markets in Texas, you're going to see double-digit percentages of open recalls. But I just wanted to kind of make it relevant for you all as much as I could. And to Cindy's point, what can we do about it? What can we kind of introduce to you all? And this Karma project that we launched in 2020 is basically taking those canvassers you saw that were putting notices on vehicles, taking that program and kind of putting it on steroids. So we've got this vehicle, it's equipped with camera technology, license plate recognition software. So it quickly sees the plate, scans the plate, ping, recall, ping, recall. And if it sounds kind of big brother, I get it, but we're checking license plates. Again, if you go to the grocery store, everybody's license plate, you can see anybody's license plate. That's all we know about you. I don't know your name. I don't know where you live. I don't know anything about you, and I don't need to. That's okay. All I need to know is, does that license plate connect to a VIN that has a recall? So that's what we're doing. You see here, we still have what we call runners. So these are the people who still will hop out and put the notification on the vehicle, but the camera's doing the work very fast for us. And you can see from our first activation, we checked more than 10,000 vehicles in a single day. This was in Orange County, pretty highly populated area in Southern California. But this is something that, especially as we look toward 2021 and hopefully things thaw out, we can take this on the road. We can take this technology on the road. And if you've got a larger workplace, maybe there's an opportunity in which we can use the Karma technology to check, thousands of vehicles. And that's where the connections come in too. Because while we're there, do you know the local high school district or the local mayor? Can you introduce us to other large employers? Can we make this a collaborative effort across the community? And you can see just some images of kind of what this looks like. We're not trying to be intrusive. We're just letting people know that they have a recall, because we do know that a lot of times you can have a recall on your vehicle and you don't know it. So you're driving an unsafe vehicle and you might not even realize it because that recall notice never made its way either to your workplace or to your home mailbox. So we're hoping in that case, we just let you know you have one. Or maybe you're the person that's been sitting on it for forever and has gotten 8 notices and has ignored it. This is a little more in your face and a little more, hey, you have a recall, get this fixed. So if this gets one vehicle repaired, that's a win, and we're already seeing through this effort. I think one of the automakers told us they'd already seen, 20 repairs made out of this first activation, which is great, really encouraging. This is more just geographic, kind of where the team went within Orange County, where they're based. I saw Disneyland on the map, so my 3-year-old would be pretty jealous of that. and some data, again, of the 10,000 vehicles, more than 7,700 were from the Check to Protect Coalition, meaning those brands you see on the right side. You see the Takata numbers were 338. So we put that in red again, because that's the top priority. But we're notifying any vehicle with open recalls there.
Well, and Tom, I just wanted to highlight on that last slide, you circled your NSC partners vehicles here. And what we see, I think, from this data is that even safety folks, people in the safety industry, people who have their eye on safety, need the reminders, need the recall information, need the easy access. Because if you see from these numbers, you were, targeting people specifically in safety with a relationship to the council, to the National Safety Council, and they had open recalls as well. Yeah. So it's we're all needing this focus.
Yeah, and it's a thing that's constantly evolving as well. So even if today you're recall free and your fleet is great, it's still something to come back to and check 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, because new recalls are coming out. Vehicles, A, they run longer, and then B, they're more complex than ever before. So you're going to keep seeing recalls come through. It's something to keep checking, just like we said with oil. Your oil, your tire pressure, anything else. I think it's going to have to become just part of the new kind of vehicle maintenance, overall strategy. Here you see, when we're talking airbag again, 03 to 08, that's kind of where you see the most airbags. And then as you go forward, what happens, this is a different chart. There's another one where as you go more toward the 2019, you'll see a lot more non-airbag. So there's new recalls that are coming out with your fuel pump or with just different your steering column, different things that you still don't want to malfunction for sure. And that's what we're hearing from automakers is, as time goes on here, these older airbags are still dangerous and we still need to get the word out about those. But now there's a whole slew of new issues on the table. And then we're just measuring our successes. This is something we can do with your workplace too, looking at remedy rates and what successes we can share. And then the second piece I wanted to share with you all is our text message campaign. So what we heard from some people is, okay, so you're telling me to go to checktoprotect.org. I enter my 17-digit VIN. I don't know my VIN. I got to go find that. Okay, hold on. Let me go back to the browser. Okay, I'm looking at my VIN. Is that a 1 or is that a lowercase l? Is that a 0 or is that the letter O? You know, so we hear that. So we're trying to adapt, and we're trying to add another option in which you can text recall to 99724. And that begins the conversation via text about, you'll get a response. Okay, thanks for texting. Can you send us a picture of your license plate? And then you do that, and it essentially uses the same system on the back end that that you saw with Karma. So it'll take the plate, it'll attach it to the VIN, and it'll go about the process of saying, okay, you've got a 2015, you know, Ford F-150. Here's the recalls associated with that vehicle. Make sure you're safe. You know, call your dealer, make sure you're good. So it's just one more option. We just think everybody's got a cell phone. Everybody's got a camera on their cell phone. So this is just one more way to engage with your workers and anyone else in the community. We also offer Revisa to that same number. So if you have Spanish speakers, they can text Revisa to the same number. They get the same process. It's just all in Spanish. And this is something that, you know, we just launched let's see, I guess it's the start of July. So we're a few months into this, and we've already gotten, I think, more than 4,000 people to text in either recall or Revisa, which is great. And we want to keep that going.
Well, and I think it'll just explode from here, Tom. I mean, when you take them away from that VIN number and give them an access code that's this easy, you're going to just see more people accessing it. I wanted to just highlight a few of the folks that are telling us what they do in the chat. We've got some people from the oil industry with fleets that are working with utility construction vehicles in the pipeline, on the pipeline. And then we've also got people who do send out employees to rent vehicles. And I know you're going to talk about the rental car aspect and how you can know your rental car is free of recalls.
Right.
We've also got people that have oil sites and some company vehicles on those sites as well.
Okay.
So that's what we're hearing from our participants who have shared in the chat, just
that's
to
great.
give you some of that feedback.
Yeah, I can speak before I forget to the rental piece, and you can check any vehicle. You can, and your VIN, it's located in that front left dash. So like above the steering wheel, you know, you'll see that 17-digit VIN in the front left dash above your dash, facing out through the windshield. Again, we do get people who come and say, well, I don't want to give out my VIN, like that's private information. Well, not really. It's outward facing. Again, I go to the grocery store, you're going to see my license plate, and you can see my VIN if you want to. It doesn't tell you anything about me. That's it. It's literally just tells you about that vehicle identification. So if you have a rental car, you can now have this feature where you can text recall and then send in a picture of that rental car's plate. Alternatively, if you go to checktoprotect.org on your phone, on your mobile device, or on a desktop, you can input that rental car's VIN. You know, you could do a VIN search on the rental car. I think more and more rental companies are realizing that, you know, that they should promote that their vehicles are safe. So hopefully they'll let you know if a vehicle is recall free, but I wouldn't assume that they're going to tell you anything. So if it's an issue where, you know, especially if it's a vehicle you're going to be driving for a while, or you're going to cover a lot of miles in this car, or it's a little bit older, I would definitely check that recall status of that rental. I think for the most part for rentals, you're talking new vehicles, like mostly, you know, new model year within the past couple years. So the likelihood of a recall is less than if you were getting into a 2012, you know, Honda CR-V or something. But it is a reminder to check that status. Same thing for, you know, if you're in an Uber, if you're on a ride share, anything like that, any vehicle you get in, it's good to know that you're safe. So yeah, thank you, Cindy, for that feedback. You can see here on the text message campaign, you know, again, we're trying to kind of get some credibility and let people know across the country that we're up and running. So we had Senator Roy Blunt from Missouri push out this message to his audience, which was awesome. Our Drive at Home safety program, the Child Passenger Safety Board, our Driving Concern Texas, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Kentucky Highway Safety Office. So it's really cool to see that momentum building, and we would love to kind of bring you in and add you to this list as well. Go to the next slide here. And then I think in terms of traffic, you know, so I mentioned, if you look at the little yellow arrow there on the right-hand side, more than 4,000 texts initiated already. and we want to keep those numbers going. So this is as of yesterday. You can see we've actually gotten really good traction with Revisa in addition to recall. So we're pretty proud of that because we want to make sure that, you know, this message gets to everybody we can get it to. And as an option, you see the very bottom right, how many signed up for future recall notices. We've got 102. I'd love to see those numbers climb too. And what we can do there is do the work for you. You know, so when that new recall is issued a month from now, and it affects all the F-150s or what, you know, choose your vehicle, we can say, oh, we have you logged in. We remember your VIN. Yeah, you're on this list. We're going to let you know about it right now. We don't do that option until the very end of the process because the most important thing is to let you know your current recall status. But once you get to the end, you can sign up for future recall notices as well. And then just going forward here, this is through the Celleride effort. So this map shows you, okay, which states have we gotten the most traffic from so far? So you should be proud because Texas is top 5 right now. Only California has more in terms of people who've reached out who say, okay, let's get started. I texted this number. What can I learn? So you can see that. You can see from our relationship, I think, with Kentucky that that's another top 5 state. But yeah, I think this is a good example of where we can make a difference in a state where we really need to make a difference. You remember that first map I showed where Texas had that 26% unrepaired rate. So through activities like this, again, even if 10% of the people get that repair made, that's awesome. You know, you're going to see progress over time.
Well, and Tom, I don't know about you, but my life is busy. And if I can in fact, I do know your life is busy too. I do know that. So pardon me. But if I can get a notification sent to me, then I am really clear to have a good night's sleep. If I have gone through this system and done the check and taken care of my vehicle, and now you're going to send me a notice if something changes, then I really feel like I've got a lot of support from
Right.
Check to Protect.
Right. Absolutely. No, I'm the same way. And then just getting toward the end here, but just our website. Again, I wanted to come back to this bulk vehicle check and just, you know, put it in your head as a way that, can we help you? Can we work with you on this in a way that we can search 10,000 VINs at one time, give you that quick spreadsheet result. Again, you can recheck it, you know, you can run it. I don't think you need to run it. I would say maybe every 3 months. It doesn't have to be all day, every day, but more than once a year for sure. At least every 6 months, if not every 3 months, just to make sure there's no new recalls that have come out that have somehow slipped between the cracks. So if this is something that interests you all, you can either get in touch with Cindy or with myself. I believe I put my contact info at the end, but if I didn't, I apologize. It's Tom, just tom.musick, musick, at nsc.org, and I can help with this process.
I think that might be on the next slide.
Okay. Well, you're the best. Did I put it? No.
Almost.
I missed it. Okay. Well, I'll have to, maybe I can put it in the chat. I can share it.
Well, and that reminds me, Tom, you know, we have done several newsletter articles. We're always updating the progress with Check to Protect to the ODC newsletter group. And through the newsletter, you also see those articles on our website. So there are multiple ways to get at some of this information.
Yeah.
Also, this webinar is recorded and it'll be available in a couple days on YouTube. If you need that link, you can go to our website for that, or let me know that you need it and I'll be happy to send it over to you.
Yeah.
I did want to share a couple of thoughts from the chat. You know, we've got a really great group of employers here with us today, Tom, and Gary is asking about the insurance companies. Mm-hmm. Have you got insurance companies behind this effort or in partnership with you at this point?
At this point, no, but it's an audience that we've really tried to reach. So we've introduced ourselves. You know, who's really stepped up and worked and helped to promote Check to Protect at military sites is USAA. So we have a good relationship with them. I know we've met or talked with anyone from, Nationwide, Travelers. I'm going to leave some out, Liberty Mutual, and some others, just to let them know that, you know, from our perspective, this could be a value add on the insurance side. So if this is something, again, where, okay, I'm a customer of, you know, ABC insurance company, if they let me know I have a recall on my vehicle, I would appreciate that, you know.
That's a good add-in.
Yeah. And I think there's concerns sometimes about it could be misconstrued, like, what does this mean, you're going to raise my rate, or does this mean, you know, something bad? It doesn't. It's purely just a safety message. And that's how I would encourage it through the workplace as well. Like, we're not this isn't a gotcha. This isn't a you did something wrong. This is just a safety message. This is just letting you know your vehicle isn't as safe as it can be. But that's a great question on the insurance side. And if folks have local agents or local insurance companies who might be interested in sharing some of our materials, we can get those materials to them. So that's really kind of our what we've done so far is we can develop these assets. Like we've got digital assets, social media, posters, palm cards. We've got all this stuff. But at the end of the day, you're all the ones in your community. You know your friends and family, your colleagues and all that. So if we can put this in somebody's hands and they can distribute it on our behalf, whether that's electronic or a tangible palm card or something, we're definitely interested. We'd love to work with you on that.
Absolutely. Tom, I'll just share this one little story. My then 18-year-old got a recall notice on her car one time. And because she's 18, her vehicle had a couple of miles on it. And it came to us and we gave it to her and we sent her to get it taken care of. And it was adulting at its best. And then we thought, well, gee, would we have taken care of it as quickly ourselves as adults? But she took care of it right away, and I was real proud of her for doing that. So if your insurance company had the capacity to also notify you or put it in your statement or something, what another great way to have that information and that reminder.
And we've brainstormed ways with any workplace to get the message out. So if you have a safety newsletter, that comes out at a regular juncture, if you have an e-newsletter, you have your own, Facebook page, depending on the workplace. I know every workplace is different, but however you communicate with workers, we can send you our, a logo. We can send you a little paragraph, if you're interested in that as another way to get the message out to your audiences.
Some people have safety fairs or safety days for their employees or for the community. We know our municipalities often offer something for the community in that regard. And we are here in Texas, we have over a couple thousand municipalities. So that's another way that our driving concern reaches through municipalities and can share that information as well on Check to Protect. And
you had a good perspective as a parent, Cindy, and so mine are younger. Mine are 3 years and 6 months. So we're in the car seat world. And I would wager most people on this chat, either you have children or your coworkers have children, have young children. And a big message on that side is, you spend all this time making sure your child's car seat is safe, and you check for a recall on the car seat, and you make sure the car seat's properly installed, and that can be part of a safety event or anything like that. But
somebody actually mentioned that in the chat, so I'm glad you highlighted it, that CPS checks are another great way to...
Yeah, because then you could say, okay, well, is the seat safe? Yep. Is it installed right? Yep. Well, guess what? You just put it back in the vehicle. Make sure the vehicle's recall free too. Because you spent all this time making sure the seat is safe and you put it back in the vehicle, well, you're going to want the vehicle to be safe. So there's opportunities where it can be combined messaging if you do have a safety fair or something like that. We don't have to be the be all end all, but we can just be part of the conversation when you're talking about whether it's child seats or tires or oil or you name it, even impaired, distracted driving, speeding. I feel like this is just something to kind of include in the conversation.
It surely is. And I'm wondering now if we have any other questions for the chat or questions for Tom that we want to go ahead and address. And if you're thinking of a question, but you want to share it by email, feel free to do that and we'll follow up and give you that information. And while we're just giving everybody another 30 seconds or so to do that, I think, Deanne, you might have some wrap-up comments to make. And Tom, I just want to remind you, your 2 little girls are going to be driving before you know it.
I know.
So we'll talk when they're behind the wheel. It was great to have you with us today. Thanks so much for all your efforts to help us be safe.
Thank you. And we've checked the little Tyke's car in the driveway. But thank you to everyone for the time.
I love it.
So again, I will say the same thing as Cindy. Thank you, Tom, for a great webinar. I did put Tom's email address in the chat. So if you have any additional questions for him or you want to contact him about the bulk vehicle check, his email address is now in the chat for you to pick up and send him a message. I also put the webinar evaluation link. We would appreciate your feedback. It's a quick 5-minute evaluation that will help us with future webinars and resources. And so that is imperative for us to continue our programming and give you the things that you are wanting and needing to help you continue your safety programs. And as Cindy has stated, we will send a follow-up email in a few days with additional information on the Check to Protect and more information on our driving concern and things that will add in addition to the Check to Protect information and just follow up. So she will do that in the next few days. So again, with that, we thank Tom for a great webinar. We thank you for attending, and just make sure you follow up with that evaluation. And with that, this concludes the webinar, and everybody have a great, safe day.